Remember when Bombardier felt untouchable? For decades, it was the company governments turned to when they needed trains, planes, or anything that moved people efficiently. From Queensland's new generation trains to Melbourne's metro tunnel signalling, Bombardier was everywhere that mattered in Australian public transport. Being a government favourite should have been bulletproof. Public contracts, predictable revenue, and the backing of entire nations. On paper, this was the safest business model in transport manufacturing. Somehow, that golden relationship became a toxic dependency that nearly killed the company. By 2021, Bombardier had been stripped down and sold off, with different pieces scattered across continents like a corporate garage sale. So what went so catastrophically wrong? How do you lose a business when governments are literally paying you billions to keep the lights on? For transport planners across the globe, Bombardier was not just another manufacturer. It was the reliable partner that connected cities, moved millions of commuters every day, and solved the impossible engineering challenges that governments could not handle alone. When you saw those distinctive trains pulling into Brisbane Central, or heard about another record-breaking regional aircraft order, you knew someone serious was behind the wheel. But that reputation for reliability and government backing could not save them from themselves. Today, the Bombardier transportation empire exists only in scattered pieces. Their trains still run under different corporate logos, their aircraft technology lives on as Airbus models, and their name survives solely on luxury jets for billionaires. The company that built transport infrastructure for nations became a cautionary tale of how not to manage success. This story starts back in 1942 in rural Quebec, Canada. Joseph Armand Bombardier had an idea born from necessity. His village was cut off by snow for months each year, so he invented a tracked vehicle that could navigate the harsh Canadian winter. What started as a solution for getting the local priest to emergency calls became the foundation of a transport empire. The blueprint was elegant in its simplicity. Build vehicles that work where others fail, solve real problems for real people, and most importantly, partner with governments who understood the value of reliable transport infrastructure. By the 1950s and the 1960s, his Ski-Doo snowmobiles had become a global phenomenon. But the real vision was bigger. In 1966, when his son-in-law, Laurent Baudouin, took control, the plan shifted towards serious transportation, trains and planes that could move entire populations. The company expanded methodically, acquiring struggling but promising transport manufacturers across North America and Europe. Each acquisition added new technology, new government relationships, and new market access. Where other corporations might have struggled to integrate such diverse businesses, Bombardier made it look effortless. By the 1980s and the 1990s, Bombardier was an unstoppable force in government procurement. They had cracked the code of public-private partnerships before anyone else even understood what that meant. Their trains were carrying millions of passengers across Europe, North America, and into Australia and Asia. Their regional aircraft were connecting cities that major airlines could not serve profitably. The company went from snowmobiles to controlling massive chunks of the global rail market. They were building everything from the London Docklands Light Railway to advanced EMU trains for Brisbane's expanding network. Their aerospace division was challenging the duopoly of Boeing and Airbus with innovative regional jets. But the real genius was not just the engineering, it was the business model. Governments did not just buy Bombardier products, they became partners. Long-term maintenance contracts, financing arrangements, and technology transfers created relationships that lasted decades. When Sydney needed signalling systems or Queensland required new rolling stock, Bombardier was not just a vendor, they were an extension of the Transport Ministry. This approach created extraordinary stability. While other manufacturers lived and died on individual contracts, Bombardier could count on decades of predictable revenue from each relationship. They became the ultimate too-big-to-fail transport corporation, so deeply embedded in national infrastructure that letting them struggle was not an option. But in the late 2000s, everything changed. The global financial crisis hit just as Bombardier was making its most ambitious bet yet, the CSeries aircraft, a revolutionary narrow-body plane designed to challenge Boeing and Airbus directly. What should have been their masterpiece became a financial black hole. Development costs exploded from an estimated $2 billion to over $7 billion. Technical challenges delayed the program by years. airlines that had promised orders started pulling back as the global aviation market contracted. Meanwhile, in the rail business, the comfortable world of government partnerships was getting more competitive. Chinese manufacturers backed by state financing were undercutting established players on price. European consolidation was creating larger, more efficient competitors. The warning signs were everywhere, but Bombardier doubled down. They believed their government relationships would protect them. They assumed their engineering excellence would overcome any financial pressure. They were wrong on both counts. First, the CSeries aircraft program became a corporate vampire, sucking cash from every other division. Every delay meant more costs, and every cost overrun required more government support. By 2015, Bombardier had burned through $5.2 billion just getting the plane to market, and it still was not generating significant sales. The irony was painful. They had built exactly what airlines said they wanted: a fuel-efficient, passenger-friendly, cost-effective aircraft for medium-haul routes. The engineering was brilliant. The business execution was catastrophic. Then the government dependency backfired. What looked like strength became fatal weakness. When Boeing accused Bombardier of dumping CSeries aircraft below cost using government subsidies, it triggered a trade war. The United States imposed massive tariffs, effectively killing the aircraft's prospects in the world's largest aviation market. The subsidies that had sustained Bombardier through development now threatened to destroy them. Instead of being the company's lifeline, government support became a liability that competitors could weaponize through trade complaints and political pressure. Next, the rail market shifted beneath their feet. Chinese competitors were not just cheaper, they offered complete financing packages that included infrastructure development. Governments started preferring deals that came with airports, roads, and entire urban development projects. Bombardier's traditional model of selling premium trains with long-term service contracts suddenly looked old-fashioned. Countries that had been loyal Bombardier customers for decades began looking eastward. Australia, once a Bombardier stronghold, started entertaining bids from CRRC and other Asian manufacturers who promised lower upfront costs and more flexible financing. And finally, the ownership structure imploded under pressure. The Quebec government and other stakeholders who had supported Bombardier for decades started demanding returns on their investments. The Bombardier family, which had controlled the company for generations, found themselves squeezed between public shareholders demanding profits and government partners expecting preferential treatment. This crisis of governance led to paralysis at exactly the moment when bold decisions were needed. Management could not decide whether to prioritize shareholder returns or long-term government relationships, so they failed at both. The knockout punch came in 2017, when Bombardier was forced to give away their crown jewel, the CSeries aircraft program, to Airbus for essentially nothing. After spending $7 billion developing revolutionary technology, they handed it over to their biggest competitor just to escape the debt burden. That moment broke the spell. If Bombardier could not make money on their most advanced product with full government backing, what could they make money on? Investors lost faith. Governments started looking elsewhere for their transport needs. The company that had seemed untouchable suddenly looked desperate. The crisis deepened as quality issues emerged in high-profile projects. Queensland's new generation rolling stock trains arrived with serious accessibility problems. Toronto's streetcar order faced repeated delays. Technical issues with signalling systems in London and New York damaged the company's reputation for reliability. By 2019, Bombardier was hemorrhaging cash and drowning in debt. The only solution was radical surgery. Sell everything except the business jet division and hope someone would pay enough to keep the lights on. The once mighty transport empire began a humiliating fire sale. First, the Q400 turboprop program went to Viking Air. Then the regional jet business was acquired by Mitsubishi. Finally, in a move that would have been unthinkable just years earlier, Bombardier announced it would sell its entire rail business, the core of the company's identity, for decades. In January 2021, Alstom completed the acquisition of Bombardier Transportation for $4.4 billion. The trains that once carried the Bombardier badge now operate under French ownership. The CSeries aircraft flies as the Airbus A220, winning orders that Bombardier could never secure. What remains is Bombardier Business Aircraft, a profitable but much smaller company that builds luxury jets for wealthy individuals and corporations. The workforce that once numbered in the tens of thousands across dozens of countries now focuses on a single product line in a handful of facilities. It is a brutal reduction, from global transport giant to niche luxury manufacturer, but it is what survival looked like for a company that had pushed its luck too far. Bombardier's collapse isn't just one company's failure, it is a symptom of how government and business partnerships can become too comfortable for their own good. Across industries, we are seeing traditional relationships between states and private companies break down under pressure from global competition and changing economic realities. The same forces that destroyed Bombardier are now threatening other government-dependent industries. Defense contractors, infrastructure companies, and even renewable energy firms are learning that political backing is not enough when market forces shift dramatically. China's state-backed industrial strategy, America's protectionist trade policies, and Europe's consolidation drive have all made the old model of cozy government contracts obsolete. Companies that built their entire business model on political relationships rather than market competitiveness are finding themselves extinct. In Australia, we are seeing the consequences play out in real time. Transport projects that would have automatically gone to Western manufacturers are now open competitions with Asian bidders. The Cross River Rail in Brisbane, Sydney, metro extensions, and Melbourne's airport link all feature intense competition from companies that did not exist as serious contenders a decade ago. The lesson for both corporations and governments is clear: dependency creates vulnerability. When companies rely too heavily on political support, they lose their market discipline. When governments become too attached to particular companies, they sacrifice cost-effectiveness and innovation. But here is the strange thing about Bombardier's legacy. Their engineering actually worked. The trains they built are still moving millions of passengers daily across the world. The CSeries aircraft, now flying as the Airbus A220, is exactly the fuel-efficient, passenger-friendly plane they promised it would be. The technology succeeded, the business model failed. Perhaps that is the real lesson. Having the best product is not enough if you cannot afford to bring it to market. Government support can nurture innovation, but it can also create dependency that becomes fatal when the political winds shift. Bombardier employed thousands of skilled engineers, contributed to transport infrastructure across dozens of countries, and pushed aviation and rail technology forward by decades. That legacy survives, even if the company did not. The trains still run, the planes still fly, the snowmobiles still race across winter landscapes. But the name that connected them all has retreated to the rarefied world of private aviation, building luxury products for the few rather than infrastructure for the many. But what do you reckon? Was Bombardier's dependence on government contracts always going to end in disaster, or could better financial management have saved them? If you have ever ridden on a Bombardier train or flown on one of their aircraft, we want to hear about it. Did you notice the difference in quality, or was it just another journey to you? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments. We would love to hear your take on whether government backing helped or hurt this Canadian transport giant. If you enjoyed this deep dive into corporate strategy gone wrong, give us a like, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you do not miss our next investigation into the companies that built our modern world and how they lost it all. Cheers for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.